Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning to you and welcome to a new week where a dark cloud hovers on our country following the death of the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah. Indeed, it is sad. We've lost the great son of the soil, and who will ever forget words like, "For we have all sinned and fallen short of God's glory. He who has never sinned, let him be the first to cast a stone." Those are the words that he gave to many that had gathered at Koro ceremonial grounds on the anti-corruption walk. If you remember, that started at the Constitutional Square to Kororo. He came out very clear and said, "Your Excellency, all of us here are corrupt. We need to repent. We need to change. We are all here because of camera, but when we go back, we shall do the same thing. It is our time that we change and fight corruption." Who will forget? He was determined and a man who stood by his word.
Oh, well, it's really a sad moment indeed. Robert, good morning, Uganda. Thank you for joining us once again. And I can actually say it's quite really a somber mood for Uganda as a country now. If I'm actually supposed to remember about the late, there are certain words of wisdom that he did put out there. And I will just probably go through some of them where he did say that a lifetime opportunity must be seized in the lifetime of that same exact opportunity. Now, these words, if you actually listen to them, if you interpret them, they clearly signify that his battles were really dignified. And of course, he was a man of great intelligence, a man who had quite a say on the principles of Uganda as a country. And he never shied away from actually voicing them out there to the world. I could say that Uganda has really lost a very powerful legislator. Uganda has lost quite an impeccable agricultural economist, and of course, a very intelligent lawyer. Now, our condolences go out to the people of Omoro County, and of course to His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and the members of Parliament, plus Uganda as a country, because, well, this right here is, I could say, somebody you cannot just replace in a blink of an eye. May his soul continue to rest in eternal peace.
Very well. Good morning, Uganda. It is indeed a sad moment for a man who has moved on three principles. One being, is it okay with God? Two, is it okay with the law? And three, if I take this decision, will I sleep well in the night? That was Jacob Oulanyah, and really indeed a very powerful man that we've had in the country. It is sad that we're losing him now. Now, I have noticed that this has been a man who has really moved his principles, and like he says, he had said it in the past. Number one is it okay with God? He has really made sure that all the decisions he makes, he's at least being faithful. And I was pleased by the fact that even before he left us, the people of Omoro County did actually bring in the clerics to hold a prayer day, and that goes to show how much he was involved with the church as well. And you know, throughout all this time, he has been a man who has moved with the word of God, and for me, that is a takeaway from his life that he has shared with us. Indeed, condolences to His Excellency the President, the Member of Parliament, and also his close friends and family. It is a sad moment, and we pray that may his soul rest in eternal peace.
A man full of life, one would say, away from being the Speaker of Parliament, Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah, the man with a bow tie. And I think that is one of the things we will greatly miss about him, his uniqueness to smartness. That every time you would see this man, he had a bow tie. I don't know when we will ever see a person so much into that like the Deputy Speaker has been. A man who was always very humorous. If you had a chance to interact with him, at least jokes were part of his life. And of course, to many of us, we cherished him, and of course the opportunity that we had with him in the Uganda Bikers Association. One man who had the love for the bikes and all the time made sure that at least even if he has not attended a tour, at least he has a heavy contribution to those that are going to attend, and of course the charity aspect of it, where you go and give to orphanages, donate to the needy, because these tours are done not only to enjoy, but also there's that element of charity when you go clean roads, sweep, and one would wonder, those that attended, that is once when he had Yvonne Chaka Chaka and he had a concert at Serena, he had unique dancing skills as well. So Jacob Oulanyah, indeed, we're going to miss a man. And of course, like the people represented in northern Uganda, many times we see politicians who it is all about themselves. But I won't forget when Jacob Oulanyah, at the helm of nodding disease syndrome in northern Uganda, came out and pushed for a supplementary budget of about 1.3 billion to be given to help families with children suffering from nodding disease. This is a person who was passionate, and also when he was opening up his first speech, acceptance after being elected as a Speaker of Parliament, he made these words very pronounced. But unfortunately, I don't think we shall live to see these words. He said, "Members of Parliament, this time we are going to be having research-based," and I want to emphasize that word, deliberations. He who hasn't researched has no right to speak. He said, "We want to see the answered being used for education purposes, that people can refer to it." And of course, he was always a person who pushed for tolerance when he said, "We shall tolerate all views and respect them." We hope, we wait, if we'll see that Parliament, where he who hasn't researched has no right to speak, and we can really cherish the answered. Many times we see opinions, allegations here and there, but Jacob Oulanyah, in his time, that is the Parliament he pushed for and wanted. Indeed, we've lost the great son of the soil.
Well, I do love the fact that you actually talk about how he really loved his bike. He was quite a flamboyant man, and it really took me back to the time when he actually decided to jump on his motorbike and, you know, made an appearance at Parliament. If you remember very well, the pictures went viral, and the man was confidently riding his motorbike, and he got to Parliament, and he was ready to address the journalists. Everybody was waiting. Everyone was in shock, you know, seeing a legislator of his stature be able to do something like that, something that you probably don't see. Quite unpredictable a man he was. But also we cannot forget the fact that he was a man of great distinction, a man who wanted to stand out, not for bad reasons or, you know, for anything that didn't really look so good on him, but quite for some basic life skills. I'll tell you one thing for sure, he was a man who really respected an aspect of time, and all the time on several occasions he did talk about it, respecting people's time. Be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And he would actually, quite a number of other politicians would come through to say, this man is really exaggerating, but if you are going to meet the speaker, or if he was meant to be somewhere, he would actually be there probably an hour before. So really, as opposed to quite a number of other legislators we have in the country, Jacob Oulanyah really made a statement, a man who really made sure that he does what he does when the time is there. In fact, during a certain interview back in 2021, somebody asked him, what do you think makes you the best legislator? And you know what he said? Time. I am one of the best. I am one of the best time managers this country has to offer. And where was the lie in that? Absolutely nowhere. Indeed, he will be a man of time.
Well, we're really going to miss that man. Now, I do remember some of the moments that he had, some of the, you know, debates in Parliament, especially when they were talking about Bank of Uganda, the central bank who sells what. He really put on a show in that session, and he made sure that his points were heard. And actually, that's what brought in the decision to make sure there were laws that were guiding instead of you know, central bank coming in to sell off any bank. And that was an initiative from Jacob Oulanyah then, and I think we have witnessed a lot of his arguments even before he became speaker, that he has been one person who insists on something and will see it through, even when he brought up proposals on you know, increasing the budget in Ministry of Health to make sure that, you know, they help people of northern Uganda with the nodding disease. He was insistent. Even when he took on office as speaker, he still wanted that issue sorted out, because even up to now we still have issues like that. Now the question is, will will people take this on? Will legislators take this on and see that what he envisioned for this country is being done?
When we talk about Jacob Oulanyah, many will remember him most so servers with NSSF. We must recall that it was the 10th Parliament that had passed, that is the NSSF bill. This was taken to His Excellency and he found it wanting in some bit of clauses, so he sent it back to Parliament. Now, on the opening of business of the 11th Parliament, if you remember that scandal there where they said some of the bills, this was business of the 10th Parliament, will not be carried on to the 11th Parliament according to laws and procedures of Parliament. Now, our workers' unionists, many activists went and met Jacob Oulanyah as the Speaker. He gave them audience, listened to them, and he said, well, we shall prioritize the NSSF bill. It was brought back to Parliament, procedure was followed, and finally it was passed and assented to as by the President. This was one of his last business in Parliament, and I want to recall him saying, now I will sleep. I had lost sleep over this bill, but now that we've passed this bill, I'll be able to sleep because I'll have dealt away with the pressure from the workers. As we speak, just this month on the 7th, applications for people that qualify for the NSS midterm benefits commenced, and on the 17th, people began getting payment, those that were eligible and their applications had been accepted of NSSF. The 20%, at least up to 20%, some gotten. Those with disabilities and they have clocked 40 years had their 50% given. Why? Jacob Oulanyah did not just say this is business of the 10th Parliament, but he saw and fought tooth and nail to ensure it sees the light of the day, and now we have a law and people can benefit from NSSF. Rest in peace, Jacob Oulanyah.
Oh, well, it's really quite a sad moment that we are still enjoying the fruits of the man who really loved doing his job. Of course, as the show goes on, we'll be giving you more and more concerning his life, his responsibilities, what he did, and of course, celebrating him because he is worth celebrating. Right about now, we're going to take a look at some of the local stories and also the international stories.
And we will kick it off with how the news of his death was announced to Ugandans by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Now, it was yesterday where the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah, according to His Excellency on his Twitter page, announced him dead. Mr. Museveni, in a tweet, said on Sunday that he got news about Oulanyah's death at 10:30 a.m. And I want to read, quoting, "Countrymen and countrywomen, it is with a lot of sadness that I announce the death of the Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah. Oulanyah, the Speaker of Parliament, I got information of this sudden news at 10:30 a.m. East African time from people that have been with him and the doctor that was caring for him in intensive care unit. He was a good cadre. I delayed the announcement so that his children would be informed first." Oulanyah traveled out of the country for treatment on February 4th, with reports claiming that the Uganda airline bus A330-800 NEO with registration code that is 5X-NIL was used to fly him to Seattle, Washington in the United States of America. The Omoro County Member of Parliament was elected on May 24th, 2021 after defeating the former Speaker Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga. He served as Deputy Speaker of Parliament from May 2011 until May 2021.
Well, still on the death of the Speaker of Parliament, now the Deputy Speaker Among says everything was done to have the late Jacob Oulanyah get the best treatment, but in vain. Among says Parliament will accord the late Speaker a decent burial according to Parliamentary Pension Act. Oulanyah becomes the first Speaker of Parliament of Uganda to die in office. The Prime Minister, Robin Nabanja, has described the late former Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah, as an outstanding leader who would always give guidance to Parliament at all times. Nabanja says the Speaker who died in America had built a legacy which will be missed by the country at large. The Minister of ICT and National Guidance, Chris Badiomunsi, has said government is working with the family of Jacob Oulanyah for burial arrangements. The death of Jacob Oulanyah, which occurred in the US, was announced by President Yoweri Museveni earlier yesterday.
Relatedly, until now, many Ugandans, most so members of parliament, have not come to terms with the news of the sudden death of Speaker of the 11th Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah. Among the notable ones is Kirabo Municipality Member of Parliament, also FDC spokesperson Ibrahim Ssemujju Nganda. Ssemujju recalls moments when he was at war with Jacob Oulanyah. According to Nganda, even where the two were not great friends, Oulanyah offered him room for interaction during the 10th Parliament in the speakership race. As for what legacy does Oulanyah leave behind, Ssemujju says he waters down the premature debate on who will succeed the late speaker. Other directors of communication, National Resistance Movement Party, Emmanuel Lumara-Dombo, also said that the speaker was a man of his word, a very courageous person, and greatly will be missed. Government will in due course issue final or tentative burial arrangements for the late speaker.
Now, still on the same, it is a somber mood in Lango after His Excellency the President of Uganda announced the retired Honorable Speaker is no more. Now, James Omara, a councillor at Lira City Council, said the entire church wept when the Catholic bishop conveyed the message in the church. Otuke County MP Paul Omara says Parliament will never be the same without Jacob Oulanyah. They described him as a witty person, a man of the people who will forever be missed.
And to the international scene, Russia says Ukrainian forces have until 5 a.m. Moscow time on Monday to surrender in the eastern port city of Mariupol. Kyiv rejects the demand. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addresses the Israel parliament and compares his country's Russian invasion to atrocities committed by Nazi Germany during World War II. He also tells CNN that negotiations are the only way to end this war. Turkey says Russia and Ukraine are making progress on talks to halt the war and that the two sides are close to an agreement. About half of the staff working at Chernobyl since Russian forces seized the site last month have been relieved by other Ukrainian staff. Now, a total of 7,295 people were evacuated from Ukrainian cities on Sunday, according to Ukrainian officials, with 4 out of 7 humanitarian corridors working. Now, Germany and Qatar have reached a long-term energy partnership, according to a German official, as Europe's biggest economy seeks to become less dependent on Russian energy sources. Russia is the largest supplier of gas to Germany, and German Economy Minister Robert Habeck has launched several initiatives to lessen Germany's energy dependence on Russia since it invaded its neighbor Ukraine. Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani met Habeck on Sunday, and the two discussed ways to enhance bilateral relations, particularly in the energy sector, the Emirate court said in a statement. A spokesperson for the Germany Economics Ministry in Berlin confirmed on Sunday that a deal had been clinched. The companies that have come to Qatar with Habeck will now enter into contract negotiations with the Qatari side. This was according to the spokesperson. In a statement, Qatar said that for years it had sought to supply Germany, but discussions never led to concrete agreements. Qatar said it agreed with Germany that their respective commercial entities would re-engage and progress discussions on long-term LNG supplies. Now, back home in Africa, at least 22 people have been killed after a bus crashed into a truck in eastern Tanzania on Friday, according to the presidency. The accident also injured 38 people, the presidency said in a statement on Saturday. The police chief of the eastern region of Morogoro, Fortunatus Muslim, said the accident occurred in Melela, Kibaoni, some 200 kilometers west of the coastal city and economic hub, Dar es Salaam. He said the truck left its lane to overtake a motorbike. The truck driver, who was heading from the Dar es Salaam port to the Democratic Republic of Congo, was overtaking a motorbike when the two vehicles collided head-on. The bus was traveling in the other direction from the western city of Mbeya to the coastal city of Tanga. This, he added. President Samia Suluhu Hassan presented her condolences on Twitter and urged road users to adhere to traffic rules. Tanzania has seen a spate of fatal traffic accidents.
Polls alarm climate scientists. Antarctic areas reach 40 degrees above normal at the same time as North Pole regions hit 30 degrees above usual levels. Now, a drop of water falls off an iceberg melting in Numpfold in southwest Greenland. Earth's poles are undergoing simultaneous extreme heat. Now, starring heat waves at both of Earth's poles are causing alarm among climate scientists who have warned the unprecedented events could signify faster and abrupt climate breakdown. Temperatures in Antarctica reached record levels at the weekend, an astonishing 40 degrees above normal in places. At the same time, the weather stations near the North Pole also showed signs of melting, with the same temperatures 30 degrees Celsius above normal, hitting levels normally attained far later in the year. At this time of the year, Antarctica should be rapidly cooling after its summer, and the Arctic only slowly emerging from its winter. Now, as days lengthen for both poles to shed, the rapid rise in temperatures at the poles is a warning of disruption in the Earth's climate system.
Well, it's also about that time that we get to hear from Robert telling us quite some good news, because we could actually use some good news this morning. Robert.
Well, the good news we have this morning is from Hallelujah Reflexology, coming to you on matters of your health. These two bottles I'm holding will boost your immune system, and what is important is empowering your body to fight off a number of diseases. Now, this is not treatment. What it does, it just improves your immune system. So at just 1,500, get yourself a bottle, or even you can get a carton, so that every morning you continuously take any of these drinks. That is the Hallelujah Ginger Tea drink or Hallelujah Tamarind drink. Any of the two will greatly do you good. And for those that take the opaque bottle, you have to go to work, you're finding a heavy head and all that, I recommend this to you. So life is a priority, and we need to keep alive and healthy by consuming such products.
Well, this morning still we would love to engage you in our conversations, and of course knowing what is happening to us as Uganda, as a country, after losing quite a man who really loved what he did. Of course, that is the fallen Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, Oulanyah Jacob. Well, we would love to hear from you. What is it that you're going to miss about him? What were your fond moments of him? Of course, you can do that by sharing it on our social media. Twitter, the hashtag is UBCGMU. He was quite a man who loved what he was doing, and indeed it would portray in his actions the way he did what he did. A man who was fully on principled, a man who made sure that he delivers if he promised, but also a man who loved and feared God. And that, I want to believe, was one of the things that really made him do the things he did, to make sure that he fills up his responsibilities. Do share with us some of your fond moments with him, what you remember about him, and probably what you will miss about him on Twitter as well. You can also send us a WhatsApp message. You can send us an SMS text. We will be sharing your thoughts, your messages of condolences and everything to the rest of the world. For now, we'll be getting into the song that is going to inspire us this morning, this Monday, something that will give us the strength to make sure we carry through this entire week, seeing that it is not really exactly starting out on a good note, but we can only and only be optimistic. Of course, when we get back in the newsreel in the next hour, we'll be talking more about the fallen soldier. We'll be back shortly, right after the break.
fall. The tears are falling, and every step is on the.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Tulantende ku program obulamu bwo.
Was brought to you by
Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Are your children ready to learn? Schools are open. As parents and guardians, it is your duty to ensure that your children go back to school. COVID-19 prevention measures have been put in place to keep students safe as they go back to school. Not only do teachers prioritize everyone's health, including their own, but they discourage violence among students. They also ensure that students follow SOPs. Any concerns are reported to a school administrator or senior woman or man teacher for correction and further guidance. Dear parents and guardians, you too must play your role. Ensure your children always maintain a 2-meter distance from others, avoid crowded places, regularly wash their hands with soap and water, and wear a washed and clean face mask that covers their mouths and noses. Please keep your children at home if they're feeling sick, and take note. In our effort to keep students safe, there are no visitation days or any other school visits allowed. Let's share knowledge, not COVID-19. This message is supported by the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education and Sports, and UNICEF. Stay safe.
There have always been hard times, but these days are harder than most. Everyone is hurting. Everyone needs help. But some among us are asking the question, what if we didn't have to go through life's hardest moments alone? What if we're in it together? And just by asking that question, he changed my son's life. He created an online crowdfunding platform for Ugandans to help raise money for each other.
Thank you, Nixon, for helping me.
This is a story of a regular Ugandan just like you, who harnessed the power of technology to provide a solution for us. How about you tell us your story? UG needs more of you. To share your story, visit airtel.co.ug/UG needs more of you or call or SMS 162. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Five minutes after 7 a.m. and of course you are watching Good Morning Uganda, running to you live from UBC TV. And of course, like we told you earlier on, we are talking about the fallen Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, Jacob Oulanyah. And of course, quite a somber mood it is in Uganda, and I know quite a number of us are still in utter shock, quite a number of us are still in utter disbelief. But well, we loved him, but God loved him more. Of course, it is the newsreel, and I am joined by Robert Kirabo, but also another senior journalist, that is Timothy Sibasi, who are going to be talking more about the fallen soldier. What did he do? The things that we are still enjoying, the fruits of his works that we are still, enjoying. We are still trying to reminisce some of his good old days and of course some of his bad days. Like any ordinary person, of course, you have the good and the bad days. We'll be talking about all that. But also in the morning poll question, we would love to find out from you some of the fun moments that you will miss about this great man. And the question is running on our social media platforms, Twitter, and that is, what do you remember about the fallen Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah? What do you remember about the fallen Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah? The hashtag is UBCGMU, and of course you can send us a WhatsApp message and also an SMS text. The number is 0709 602 592 0709 602 592.
Well, indeed, it is a dark cloud hovering around the country, Uganda, as we mourn our greatest son of the soil, Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah. I'm with Timothy Thibathi, a man who has been in this industry for a long time. And just like our poll question really goes, I want to begin by looking at some of your fond memories of Jacob Oulanyah. One as Deputy Speaker, then as Speaker.
Well, my memories date way back in 2006 about Oulanyah, when he was the chairperson of the Parliamentary Legal Affairs Committee. He played a significant role That was during the time of discussing whether the presidential term limits should be left onto the statutory law books of Uganda or should be removed. He offered guidance, and they were removed. That's when Oulanyah came to the limelight. Then in 2011, he becomes the deputy speaker. I still remember I was the first journalist to interview him in the heated campaigns that ended up him becoming the deputy speaker. I still remember where they are constructing these new parliamentary chambers. Oulanyah was standing. There used to be a parking space, a parking lot. Oulanyah was standing behind a small vehicle, but nobody knew that he had ambitions of becoming a deputy speaker. I interviewed him, and the following morning, Oulanyah showed his bid to become a deputy speaker, and he did. His dreams came true. He became a deputy speaker.
Well, when you talk about the man becoming a deputy speaker, actually, when we remember those that interacted closely with Oulanyah, they will tell you that from the time he was at university and he was the speaker of the guild at Makerere University during his time, some believe that this is when he had that vision. He picked interest that, yes, I must not only extend this, I must push this as far as being the deputy speaker and then finally becoming the speaker of parliament. It's massive. But when you talk about Jacob Oulanyah, yes, you've talked about his light moments. For me, I will not forget Oulanyah, the man who I want to term as a very focused person. Well, that, you know, I'll give you an example, a very short example. When we talk about Jacob Oulanyah, when the race for speakership was so heated up, this man remained cool, if you remember. Much as the counterpart was everywhere, this, that, he was very cool. Then he comes to work and says, have come to hand over office. You know, it's not very common that a person says, I'm not coming back to this office, going for an elective position. But he was very, very sure and said, no matter what, I'm not returning, I'm handing over what belongs to this office, and now I believe I'll go to another level. Whether I succeed or not, I'm handing over government property.
Well, and that's why I say that Parliament has lost a man, a principled man, a man who has self-control. Whenever things are going the other way around or whenever he's provoked, he had that art of anger management. Parliament has lost a man who is well grounded in law. And I do believe Deputy Speaker Anita Among is so sad, had a lot to learn from this gentleman. But unfortunately, death has robbed the country a man of stature. Oulanyah always liked to follow the law, what the law says. That thing that he did, handing over the vehicle and other instruments of power, when he developed the vision of becoming a speaker, that's what the law necessitated. Those who never followed the law, they retained government assets. So that showed the people a man, a principled man in Oulanyah. A man who is not a populist. A man who is always time cautious. In fact, yesterday I was editing a script of one of the reporters who say that the timekeeper is dead. He was a timekeeper. When it's two, it's two. He starts. Whether the House has only 5 MPs, he will start the session. And many have got to learn from him. Then he shaped very many MPs on the manner of debating, the way of debating. He would tell you that you can make a point in 1 minute. You don't need 5 minutes, 3 minutes to make a point. First, people thought that he was being arrogant. And he introduced a system in Parliament whereby he instructed the press department of Parliament to download proceedings of the Commonwealth Parliament so that MPs can learn how these MPs in the Commonwealth Parliament make arguments and somebody makes a point in a minute. And it has worked. Many have learned from him. But all I will remember about him, a timekeeper, a principled man who wants to follow the law. Who could not allow an MP to discuss outside the perimeters of the law. He could always ask, what does the law say? In fact, he could even forget that he's a speaker and it becomes part of the debate to guide the House. That's the man that the state has lost. We stand together with the family members and the president, who's so potentially
talking about the law, many people have attributed to the man who always respected the law. But also, let's look at how honest this man was. I always stood for the truth. It was in 2000, I think it was on 4th December 2019, when His Excellency led this is the anti-corruption walk. Of course, many Ugandans came out and said, just walking from Constitutional Square, known to many as City Square, to Koro ceremonial grounds, what does really, how does it help in the fight of corruption, you know? Many saw it as ceremonial, others as something for government to spend, but they said it was about creating awareness regarding corruption, that is an evil we have, and we must fight it. And Oulanyah, when giving his speech, comes out and says, let he who has not sinned be the first to cast the stone. And he said, Your Excellency, all of us here are corrupt. We are all corrupt. We are here for ceremonial purposes, but we are going to go back and do the very thing and nurse and share bed with corruption that we've always done, unless we change our hearts. We've inherited, we are cherishing, we are only condemning corruption when it comes to camera. And these words made headlines all over social media. A man who would stand and say, this is a problem, we are all sinners into this.
Yes, he was a man who was against corruption. The work that you are talking about, you could see Oulanyah was torn between a hard surface and a hard rock. He never wanted to involve himself in that work. Because for him, I think, in his cautious as a lawyer, thought that by working we shall be like legitimatizing corruption. But later he spoke to his heart and he had to work. But at the backset of his mind, he knew that I must tell the public and the president on the function that we need to do something about this. We are here working, but we are working with corrupt people here. And I know he has died. You know, he used to like that, let us deliver the Uganda that we want. He has died before seeing the Uganda he wanted. He has been barely 8 months in office. He only chaired Parliament about like 2 times, but in pain. The last time he was seen in Parliament was on December 21st, when he presided over the passing of the budget. Since then, he has not been in the public light. Only people to get news, bad news that the man is no more. I know we are going to miss him. Parliament is going
Talking
to
about Oulanyah and Parliament, away from him being dishonest, the man who follows the law, but was also a man who desired a Parliament. First, right from behavior, because Oulanyah has been a gentleman. We've had many people in big offices running from scandal to scandal. I don't remember any scandal that involved Jacob Oulanyah from political line, where we know sometimes somewhere politics would have its issues. But in his first speech, he talked about research. He talked about tolerance. He had a vision of a parliament that discusses issues that are people-centered. He had a dream, he had a vision of seeing a parliament where members of parliament do research, speak not basing on allegations or thoughts, and even came out and said, we need the answer of parliament to be used for research purposes, for study purposes. Do you think Jacob Oulanyah, in his shortest time as speaker, because he had 10 years as deputy speaker, but as the overall of parliament, that he has sown a seed which will germinate according to affairs of parliament? We see them running here and the way they conduct their business.
In his dream, Oulanyah thought that each MP would have a research assistant. Because he was a man who believed in substance. I still remember I was covering a parliamentary session that was in the 10th Parliament, told MPs that when you look at the Hansard of 1962, the MPs were in the House up to around 1970. Men could talk substance. But when you look at our Hansard today, there's nothing substance on it. What did that mean? It meant that he wanted MPs to speak from an informed point of view. One, Parliament should hire research assistants to these MPs. Because when you look at the law, the law allows somebody of senior 4 or senior 6 to become an MP.
Senior 6 actually.
Yeah. So you find...
Or it's equivalent.
Or it's equivalent. So you find senior 6 student, more especially, it's not well informed, other than reading Napoleon history and stuff like that. So he was a man who thought that such an MP can be helped if he has a research assistant who does research for him or her before coming to Parliament on a specific topic that is going to be discussed. But that has not worked out. I knew either at the end of his tenure as a Speaker of Parliament, he would have delivered that promise, but it has not worked out. But that becomes unfinished business to the Speaker who is going to get on board. That you need to provide research assistance to ensure, if you were to enhance the debate in the Parliament.
Well, Jacob Oulanyah in 2008, we'll not forget when he chaired, that is the subtitle committee of Chiseka Market, the controversial land there. He was a man who really gave it all and produced facts as needed. But Timothy Sebahi, one of the things that Jacob Oulanyah pushed for, he wanted politicians that bring the problems of the people they represent. And he said most of the time, Parliament, we are discussing politics. We are forgetting the ordinary man. And this takes me to remember where he himself led the call for supplementary, the passing of supplementary budget. That is 1.3 billion for northern Uganda during the nodding disease, at the helm of nodding disease syndrome. I remember one of the media houses ran that story, how it had really taken on northern Uganda. And he said we need to have a supplementary budget to give these people, families that have children with nodding disease, they need some form of assistance, because children need medication, these children need good feeding, and northern Uganda is not good to an area that really it's come from war, it has its own challenges. So government looked into this, and indeed a supplementary budget was passed. Do we see this crop of leader? Yes, he has been a strong pillar in northern Uganda. We remember him even during, that is the Lord's Resistance rebel group, when they were doing so much in northern Uganda, that he went into mediation, he was so much into that. But do we see politicians that maybe have coped or have that feel for the people? Look at the recent affairs in Parliament, where it was how quick it was done, how swift it was done, the zeal and the determination it was done. But elements, issues of people, when you have high prices going up, when you have education having its challenges, health having its challenges? Do we see this?
I don't see that happening. You know, Oulanyah came from a region that has been riddled by war for over 21 years. Many of them who were at campus by that time, when many of their people were in camps, a lot of suffering. So they were pushed into politics to address the challenges of the day that were at home, back home. And that became a focus of many of them. If you see that the breed of MPs from Northern Uganda at that time.
And many have said that Northern Uganda is one of the regions that have provided quality.
Yeah. So they were focused at addressing the issues back home and how to turn Northern Uganda to look like other regions of this country. And they delivered that. So always for them speaking on the floor of parliament, it was speak the problems of the people that you represent. But many of the MPs that we have today, when they come to Kampala, they get lost into the politics of the day, into delivering the promises that they have made before their people. They get into politics of money, they get into a lot of stuff. So Oulanyah kept on guiding. It's what you are saying. Reflect what you told the people. That's what you are coming to do. So many of them get lost when they get to parliament. So he always insisted, because you have brought in the issue of nodding disease. Nodding disease is something that perturbed leaders in Northern Uganda. Research was done, first research was done, could not identify the cause of the problem. Children were dying, elderly people. So it was incumbent upon him as a deputy speaker to ensure that money is identified to have the problem addressed. Otherwise, it was another wave that was going to get Northern Uganda 20 years behind.
Let's look at the heated moments of Jacob Oulanyah's political career. Well, as a member of parliament, one would say he had a proper sail through. But now when it comes to speakership, beginning with 2016, when we saw him contest for speakership. This time, I think the speakership race, deputy speakership race had begun peaking, not previously when he was with Odonga Oto, which wasn't so much. But 2016, Jacob Oulanyah, NRM, and then we had Muhammad Nseleko, where Jacob Oulanyah was able to get 300 votes, and Muhammad Nseleko got 115, if I recall very well. This was fairly a hotted one. Let's begin at that particular moment. Jacob Oulanyah, once in parliament on UPC ticket, then comes back, having now crossed over to NRM. We see his political journey from 2001 coming, then 2016, hotness in position, his re-election, and serving his last term as deputy speaker there, that hotly contested race.
It was a hotly contested race, I believe, but at the end of the day, the NRM had saw a leader in him who can manage that parliament, much as others, a few stubborn MPs had not seen that. And indeed, the NRM, irrespective of his political background, they threw support behind him. He made it as a deputy speaker, and he tolerated all who were against him in the race. That's what I'm saying. We have lost a man who is tolerant. I still remember he had issues with Semujunganda, had issues with Odongoto one time, who tore papers and threw them in the face of Jacob when Jacob was chairing a parliamentary sitting. But at the end of the day, Jacob was annoyed, but he got back to his senses, and he forgave Oulanyah and Semuju. He said, let me accept to be stupid, and I tolerate you. And Semuju yesterday was saying that when he went to his office, he had gone to ask one apology. That Semuju said that he was shocked when Oulanyah told him that, no, brother, we all come here to work. No, I've left that, I've moved on. Let us work as a team. Don't mind about that. I know you can get annoyed. Even me, I do get annoyed. But how do you manage your anger and tolerate people? Somebody said that I was shocked of a man in him. I thought that we were going to be enemies. And that's the man. I do believe President Museveni and the NRM party, through support behind this man, due to, after a thorough study of his leadership skills and knowledge, he's a man whom they thought that would bring Parliament together, who will not turn. A man was meant to change the image of Parliament from being a populist Parliament to be a Parliament of issues. But this has not happened.
Well, also, let me now draw more closer to the final moments, and this brings us, that is, to the speakership race, where we saw Jacob Oulanyah. That was where he was elected on May 24th. This was a race that we shall never forget on the political atmosphere of this country, where we saw Jacob Oulanyah now contesting against his former boss, that is Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga. And at the end of the day, Jacob Oulanyah was able to have he was able to win with 310 votes. Then we had Kadaga 197, and Semuju Nganda comes with a 15, that is in number of the votes. This at one time many thought even would divide the party. This in one way or the other turned away from just a political context into something else that many would say, some even thought it would tear the party. And the chairman of the party had to come out and clearly show that this is the party's position. We will seek votes for Oulanyah. At one time told them, hold campaigns. Oulanyah in this, how he conducted himself, and maybe what we learn and politicians learn from this great man.
Oulanyah and Kadaga had their differences to sort out that were based on how Parliament was being managed then time. Because Oulanyah wanted to contest against Kadaga way back in 2016. But the party he believes in and the leadership of the NRM, they told him that no, first hold on. I still remember even Kadaga was on the floor of Parliament, said that if I manage to wait for 10 years for former Speaker Edward Sekandi to conclude his 2 terms, why shouldn't Oulanyah wait and I first serve my 2 terms? And I still believe that that's what Oulanyah was told in the NRM side. But okay, as NRM, let us leave her to conclude her 2 terms. And indeed, Oulanyah was tolerant, accepted for the 2 terms.
Waited.
Patiently waited, the 2 terms ended, and then he showed back. And this time round, the NRM was like, okay, try your luck. It was heated debate. I know Rebecca knew that he was supposed to serve for 2 terms, but was not indicated anywhere in law that a Speaker of Parliament is supposed to serve for 2 terms. her Chisanja is open, the Chisanja of a Speaker of Parliament. So, wanted to come back, but the NRM culture were like, to serve for 2 terms. Your terms are ended, let this one serve. That's what brought the storm. By the end of the day, the chairman of the party and leaders of the party, SEC, they ruled out that Oulanyah take on the mantle. And that's what happened. But Oulanyah, upon assuming the speakership of Parliament, came to Parliament and told employees of Parliament that I have come to work with you. I have not come to divide Parliament. But I still remember he walked from department to department, department to department, seeking for unity, and they do their job. And this happened. That's the man that we have lost, a tolerant man patient. I don't know, the next speaker, whether will have those values.
Timothy, let's look at Oulanyah after taking office, which really hasn't been a smooth sail basing on health, because remember when he returned to Parliament on July 2021, when he got that heroic welcome after having attended treatment, that is when he criticized some Ugandans who said, people pray for the sick. Here a person wakes up and all they are looking at is maybe announcements, where is Oulanyah? Actually, people are going to demonstrate, they don't know where their speaker is and all that. Then, of course, after that, he left still on health issues. We saw him return to Parliament. That was in December 2021, and he passed a few, he chaired a few sessions, one of which is where we saw the passing of the National Social Security Fund, that is a bill, NSF midterm access, where some have begun reaping from this. And I remember him saying, now I'll sleep. I'll sleep in peace. Because this has been on my mind, workers have been on my mind. Thank you, MPs. Thank you, everybody. And he did that, happened. The next we had on the 4th of February, Oulanyah being flown out of the country using Uganda Airlines Airbus and attending treatment. Next was the man had gone to meet his creator. His short time that he has been in Parliament as Speaker.
It's sad that MPs have missed him. They have missed his guidance of the House, because a lot has happened between December 21st, when he was last seen in the House there. A lot of things have been passed without critical guidance. The mode in which even the House has been conducting business, some MPs feel that if he was around, some of the things that have gone wrong wouldn't have happened. It is indeed, he's a man who believed in procedures. Procedures. What does the law say? What are the parliamentary rules of procedure say? So MPs are going to miss a man. In that short period we are talking about, he would have guided a lot on the business of the House. And a lot has been passed. Like the last precedent that happened, I was sharing with some people last evening, as we're saying that if Oulanyah was in the chair, a man like Zake would not have been sacked, because a man who believed in tolerance, keeping political parties united in Parliament. So those are some of the issues that happened in his absence, but everything is done for a reason, and I do believe that God calling him to go to heaven had a reason. Yeah.
Well, the life of Speaker of Parliament Jacob Oulanyah, who passed on, is what we've been discussing, and of course many attributes have gone to a man always looking out for what the law says, a man of integrity, a man of dignity, respect, but also a man who feared God, I must say. He was deeply rooted in his faith. Timothy, before I let you go, what are some of your maybe that final remarks regarding this life?
My final remarks is that Parliament seems to be is headed for an administrative crisis. The issue, are we going in for an election or not of the Speaker? And what does the law say? I've heard other people arguing that there is a deputy speaker. There is a deputy speaker. Yes, there is a deputy speaker. But what does the law say? If I go back to, if you see like
briefly,
Article 82 that talks about the parliamentary elections and the speaker and the deputy speaker, then you go to Article 81, Clause 4 of the Constitution. I can read it very shortly. The Article 81, Clause 4 says, of this Constitution says, no business shall be transacted in Parliament other than an election to the office of the Speaker at any time that office is vacant. Now the office is vacant. I'm seeing we are headed for an election of the Speaker.
Well, headed for an election of the Speaker, we shall all live and die at one time, but what happens is the legacy. What will people remember about us? That is what is very important. Well, we now head to Philo. Of course, we know that many of you have contributed to our poll question this morning.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. The poll question, just to remind you, what do you remember about the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah? And of course, you have come through with some of your feedback on our social media. What do you remember about the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah? And coming in from you, Martin, you're saying, besides his contributions to parliamentary diplomacy and friendship, well, we shall always remember him for promoting his country as a peaceful and safe place, and of course, inspiring us as Uganda to make sure that we run smoothly. And of course, coming in from you, Mercy, you're saying he was a very humble and charismatic, plus approachable and down-to-earth leader who practically was so eloquent in articulating issues, though he was serving in a wrong system. Oh, well, keep the feedback coming in. And from you, Moses, you're saying he was such a straightforward man who knew how to be vocal about what he wanted, but also what he was expecting from the legislators that he was leading in the 11th Parliament. From you, Henry Mwebwa, you're saying, as a great leader who strongly valued and managed time, we will definitely miss him. And he also strongly advocated for environmental protection. And coming in from you, Chiwanuka Ben, you're saying, I will remember him as a tolerant and God-fearing leader. Well, these are quite some of the aspects that we totally remember about this great man. And of course, we will live to remember some of the aspects, and indeed, we will be missing them. And of course, as we go on, coming in, you're calling yourself Mark. You're saying he was a pure human being who treated humanity with quite a lot of sincerity. He cried for the mothers and children during the epidemic of the nodding disease when his government had just about 75 million for 9 districts to fight the breakout, which is actually one of the most memorable things that we remember about him. But of course, we cannot fail to forget how he actually took part in the peace talks as the government of Uganda was trying to make sure that they end the LRA war that was happening in the northern part of Uganda, and it had lasted for about a decade. He was part of the leaders that came through to make sure that he indulges in these peace talks, which clearly shows that he was, of course, he was really valuing the essence of peace for Uganda as a country, but also for human beings to be at peace, because, well, any country to be considered very strong, it needs to be at peace. Well, keep the feedback coming in, and we'll definitely be sharing it with you and the rest of the country as Good Morning Uganda goes on. However, also to take a look at what made the headlines in our papers, in the press, that is the press review this morning, looking at both the New Vision and the Daily Monitor. And to start off with Daily Monitor, of course, Oulanyah, the Speaker unites nation in death. Well, it is the story of the day, probably the story of the week. And of course, we look at his life from 1965 all the way to 2022, where he did breathe his last. And of course, the more details on that, and also the tribute still stretches all the way. My son did not die of a natural cause. This was a claim that was made by Oulanyah's father. Definitely the details are out there in this in the paper, so make sure you grab yourself the Daily Monitor to see the details of this story and the claims that are being made by his father. And members of Parliament to elect new speaker before next House sitting. Well, that is also quite something that we are yet to see as a country. Who is going to be able to replace this man of great value? Who is going to be able to make sure that they prove themselves worth? Which legislator will that be? Well, all that is definitely going to be in the Daily Monitor, so make sure you grab yourself this paper this morning. But also taking a look at the New Vision this morning. Still, we see the big and main story being about the speaker, that is Jacob Oulanyah, a special tribute right from 1965 to 2022. And we look at some of the things that they really highlighted, what killed the speaker, the life and, of course, the time of Oulanyah, how he wanted to be remembered. Leaders come through to pay tribute, unforgettable quotes, and what happens when the speaker dies in office. Now, this really would be very interesting. What would be the plan B that the August House has, especially now that the speaker is not around anymore? All this, make sure you grab yourself the New Vision this morning to get more of that. And they give you more highlights about presidency. That's the Electoral Commission clears NRM cadres to collect signatures. We also take a look at what you missed at the Harvest Money Expo, and over 230 jobs over there, the vacancies and tenders. So grab yourself this paper this morning to make sure that you don't miss an opportunity that could actually be yours. But also taking a look at the Daily Nation this morning, crowds for hire. And of course, this is Decision 2022. Well, apparently they said democracy on sale. A Daily Nation and NTV, of course, investigation reveals shocking details about that. And I'll guard your wealth, Ruto was assuring Uhuru. Now, what is this all about? Make sure you get this paper. Quite interesting edition, I'll tell you, this Monday morning. And also in the education sector, how KCSE tests leaked despite Magoha's repeated assurance. Now, this is a story that has been unfolding for the last couple of weeks, and every single day more details are coming to light. So grab yourself the Daily Nation. And sibling rivalry threatens to tear apart alliances. We're yet to see that. Grab yourself this copy of the Daily Nation, or you can access it online as well. Well, for now, Mollen is coming in to give you more details, especially when it comes to climate, when it also comes to giving you the weather forecast for the different parts of the country. Well, Mollen, I will tell you something interesting. While I was reading about the fallen Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah, somewhere it was actually mentioned that he was quite a man who was really enthusiastic about environment. And I think it's very encouraging to see quite that our leaders, our own leaders right here, do understand the value of climate. They understand how it affects us as Uganda, but also as a globe. So if it was mentioned that he was quite a man who was very, and considering that he was a farmer, definitely, we know the relationship between farmers, the environment, the weather, and the climate. I think that right there shows something that is bigger than that, especially coming in from the fallen soldier.
Well, I do remember when Parliament actually brought out the Climate Change Act that now has been enacted as a climate change policy that was, initiated by the Ministry of Water and Environment. The fallen speaker was actually on board on making sure that this got the attention that it wanted, because he even called on the committee that was tasked to make sure that all the what was missing for it to be enacted into a law was done, and that was a good remark coming from him. And that's when he emphasized his love for environment and making sure that we had such a policy to guide us when it comes to climate action in this country. And I think that has also inspired most of the people that he was working with in terms of environmental laws, because now even with him, even when he was absent in that time, we did see the country take on some of these committees that were formed up in Parliament, take on most of the negotiations with climate change. Even the Glasgow Pact that came up, there was a committee from Parliament that did go with the national delegation in Glasgow to make sure that we were also part of that commitment as the world tackles climate change. So obviously he was a man that was in love with nature and making sure that Uganda follows through with most of these policies. Yeah.
Quite a man who knew what was good for us, even when we didn't. Very knowledgeable about each and everything. We will definitely dearly miss him. Now, remember, UBC TV will be giving you all the details concerning the barrier arrangements. And of course, as they come to light, we'll be unfolding them to you right here on UBC TV. My name is Philomena Mastiko. I am officially handing you over to Mollen to give you more about the climate information and news, but also the weather forecast. Have a wonderful Monday morning and a productive week ahead.
Well, thank you, Philomena. Now we start it off with the news that is coming in from Dallas, Texas, where there has been wildfires, and these have destroyed 86 homes across the area. Now, at the same time, what we're getting from Reuters News this morning, it also shows that at least 56,000 acres of land have been destroyed by these wildfires. Now, this has been across the western part of Dallas, where these wildfires are said to have been fueled by strong winds across the area, and also following a prolonged period of dry weather across the area. Now, it is not the first time that we are seeing wildfires across Texas for this time of the year. However, this is to a much larger extent, where thousands of acres have been claimed with these fires. Now, some of the pictures that were coming through showing some of the homes that were destroyed, but also people that were being airlifted, because even when the fires did destroy these homes, there were death that was reported, but so far we don't have a confirmed number of how many people have died in these fires. Now, this broke out actually on Saturday through Sunday, and till now we haven't had any confirmed number of deaths, but at least the reports coming through from Texas, USA, are showing that most of the homes that were destroyed, also including the elderly. Now, there is at least the local authorities and fire rescue teams on ground making sure that they assess the damage. But however, it is also, the reports are showing that this has been mainly because of the dry weather that has been prolonged over the area. Now, it also shows that some of the strong winds as well across the area, because that western part of Dallas actually at this time of the year should be like within the summer time, but at the same time you also look into the fact that these have been frequent over the time. Now, the way that it has happened in the past, at least it has not claimed this kind of extent in the area. And that is where our worry is coming through, especially with climate scientists also attributing this to the fact that we've had a lot of changes in our climate. So even what starts out as just dry weather could in turn trigger all this breakout for wildfires, and which is what we're looking at as the damage that is coming in, as long as we do not take action to make sure that our weather is returned to normal. Because if you look at such an extent of more than 50,000 acres of land being claimed by a fire, that's a huge part of the area. And so far, if what we're seeing is that 86 homes have been destroyed, that means also you're taking the lives that have been there. And so far, we don't even know how many people survived these fires, but they will be giving us updates across the area. But that is what we're talking about when we talk about extreme weather events that are a result of our delay in terms of climate action. Talking of which, there has been a huge talk about the use of oil and gas, and the Biden administration did talk about the fact that they wanted to phase out oil and gas as fossil fuels in a change to make sure that they make their commitment on the Glasgow Pact and the Paris Agreement of phasing out fossil fuels. But now with the Russia-Ukraine war, that means that the US itself distanced themselves from use of the Russian natural gas, which is the renewable energy. Now, my worry is on the fact that if we are taking this on the environment, where are we going in terms of commitments towards climate action? Because the Biden administration actually yesterday did announce that they will be resuming the oil and gas sector that they had put on hold in a look to go into renewables. But now, just because of the war, they are now resorting to, okay, let's resume oil and gas in the meantime, as we see how this works out with Russia and Ukraine. But my true sense is that really, even if the war is going on, the imports of natural gas are not restricted. So just because these countries want to put sanctions, they are taking it on what has been there as a system to move into renewable energy. And this is not just the USA. We did see some countries in Europe that have also declared they're not going to be importing natural gas from Russia because of the war. And we are getting right back to square one where we started, because we had a commitment in Glasgow and Paris in 2015, where we came out with all these agreements and looking into how to phase out fossil fuels. But now that you have all these insurgencies between countries, you are going back to where we actually started. We are going back to square one, and this is not looking good in terms of climate action. All these global agreements, I don't know the repercussions within the laws and regulations of how to get into the agreement of especially the Paris Agreement, where the US actually signed into that, also the Glasgow Pact. But now if they are going back on their word and they're like, okay, now for us we're going to resume oil and gas in the meantime, it just shows how much people are not committed towards climate action. And we're looking at terrible times where even this morning we're reading news about the Arctic getting warmer, the snow is starting to melt. These are the areas that have kept the world in balance. But we are having more and more of temperature rise across the world. And unless these developed countries make a commitment to remove renewable, we are still going to be at the same roundabout when it comes to rising temperatures. And this is where my worry is. I hope that this is not something that everyone now considers, because Russia has been providing natural gas, to many countries, and this is what has kept us with quite a balance. But also, you look into the fact that most of the countries that have been into renewable energies are also going down on coal. And this is coming in from South Africa. They are also thinking of, activists actually took it to the streets yesterday and throughout last week in complaining about the air quality. And they are saying that the coal mines across South Africa are responsible for the poor air quality across the city, that is Joburg and Durban and the southern parts of South Africa. So they are blaming it on the coal mines over the area. And when you see activists actually taking it to the streets, people think these are just striking, but it is the truth of the matter. Because the moment we say, okay, do away with fossil fuels, do away with coal mines, but this keeps happening because governments are not willing to commit to what was agreed upon. I'm happy that South Africans are taking it to the streets or upon themselves to say, no, we don't want this, because obviously they are seeing the poor quality of the air around them. And if they are blaming it on coal, I think governments should be more ready to commit to what they sign up for, because South Africa is one of the countries that actually did sign off on the Glasgow Pact. So how again are they getting back into coal? Yet that is the one thing that at least Glasgow did come up through to say we are phasing down coal. That's the one major thing that was taken out of that pact. So to see South Africa again going back on that, I think for me it's really taking us back to even when we didn't have that commitment. So this is where I think governments are not doing us justice, just from the world, all the extreme weather events that we're seeing across the world. This is not the time to have feud along what happens when it comes to climate action, and that is how we're getting into these extreme weather events. But well, away from that, we also want to take a look into the weather that is happening across the country for this morning. We're going to be tapping in from the UMSAT satellites overlooking Uganda as we speak. Now, this is also showing that rainy system that is coming in from the Lake Victoria. Now, that seems to be moving at a very fast rate, but mostly bringing in cloudy conditions. We are seeing most of those headed towards the western side of Lake Victoria, and that most likely will be giving us rains later in the day. But for now, it looks like most areas within the country are having mostly sunny conditions. Where you see the gray colors there, those are open skies, indicating a sunny morning that is across eastern Uganda towards the Lake Choga area as well. The central part that is of northern Uganda, where you have Gulu, Kitgum, Padel, that area already having mostly sunny conditions, and it looks like that will continue into the rest of the morning. We have a few clouds that are developing across the Karamoja region. Now, most likely that will help to keep temperatures down for this morning, but also that will not be going throughout the afternoon, because we do expect temperatures over there to pick up later in the afternoon and still maintaining sunny conditions. That will be across the Karamoja area. But the good news is that we're still starting to have most of those systems develop, especially across West Nile and Midwestern Uganda, starting off with cloudy weather this morning, but also that is for the forecast is indicating that maybe later in the day we might be looking at a little bit of rains across the western stretch. So at least that is good news coming through. But also looking into southwestern Uganda for this morning across Oulanyah, across parts of Ntoroko, Fort Portal, Mbarara as well, Bushenyi, that area is starting off with just a mix of clouds and sunshine. Where you see those clouds, the white colors are indicating cloudy conditions developing over there, and most likely those will be also developing into rainy conditions. That is later in the day. Now monitoring this rainy system that is starting off at the Lake Victoria, it seems like that will be bringing in a little bit of rains towards offshores of Lake Victoria, but also that will be to a few areas, most especially those close to the lake. But later in the afternoon we do expect some of those to develop into rainy conditions, especially towards the western side of Lake Victoria, as well as the central here, parts of Wakiso, Entebbe, Kampala. We might be looking at a little bit of rains, but also that will be across several places. And most likely also across the Kabale Highlands, we are having more intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions for this morning, but the forecast does indicate that we might be looking more into rainy conditions later as the day progresses. Well, at least we are seeing that at least the Lake Victoria Basin is still continuing with mostly rainy weather. However, some areas within parts of central continue with dry conditions, and also for central northern Uganda continuing with those sunny conditions. Now we can expect those to continue into the afternoon. Also for the eastern region across parts of Tororo, Soroti, you can expect to maintain most of those sunny conditions even into the afternoon. So that's the one area, if you're going to be around that place, or if you're going to if you're moving over there, you should be prepared for that. Probably carry a water bottle with you, because it will really get hot as the day progresses. We might be looking into the lower 30s by end of the day. Well, I want to leave you at that, and we do have the Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Robert will be here to take you through that, but also later we'll be having sports highlights with Ruben. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a wonderful week.
This is how we play. Play with power.
This is how we do it.
How we put a team together. This is how we pass on greatness. Because with this team to inspire us, there's nothing we can't do.
Go for goals and win. Buy a Pepsi glass bottle or Pepsi Max 330 ml. Check under the crown and win soda, TVs, caps, t-shirts and cash. Redeem prizes at any Pepsi depot or truck countrywide. Terms and conditions apply.
Pepsi, for the love of it. Pick of the day on UBC. Brought to you by
Tulantende ku program Obulamu.
Was brought to you by
Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
COVID-19 is still here with us. As Professor Magichigozi states, the time is now for all of us to get vaccinated.
When we have one person who's not vaccinated, it affects everybody around them, most especially the ones close to you. Keep your family safe. Anyone right now who's over 18 should go and get vaccinated.
Because of the new COVID-19 circulating variants like Omicron, it is very important for all of us to be fully vaccinated with 2 doses of the same vaccine type. It's only those getting Johnson & Johnson who receive only a single dose to be fully protected.
Even after vaccination, continue to adhere to all SOPs by wearing a mask properly, covering your mouth and nose, washing your hands regularly with soap and clean water or using an alcohol-based sanitizer, maintaining physical distance of at least 2 meters from others and avoiding crowds. Echa COVID-19, chija kugwa. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and partners.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
There have always been hard times, but these days are harder than most. Everyone is hurting. Everyone needs help. But some among us are asking the question, what if we didn't have to go through life's hardest moments alone? What if we were in it together? And just by asking that question, he changed my son's life. He created an online crowdfunding platform for Ugandans to help raise money for each other.
Thank you, Nixon, for helping me.
This is a story of a regular Ugandan just like you, who harnessed the power of technology to provide a solution for us. How about you tell us your story? UG needs more of you. To share your story, visit airtel.co.ug/UG needs more of you or call or SMS 162. Airtel, the smartphone network.